well-known art critic once said to me that he thought my work were a bit like visual parables, and it was a very nice thing to say. But one person who was inspired by parables not to make visual art but to make poetry was somebody called John Newton, and he wrote the following in around 1770. You may know it. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Well, the wretch that was saved was him in his previous life. The person, John Newton, was a reverend. He wrote that when he was a vicar in Buckinghamshire in England. And it became extremely popular in America, particularly among the black community, and it became very much a gospel song that was very popular, gospel hymn, and it still is popular. But he was something of a reprobate before he saw the light, and he writes about how sweet the sound, amazing grace saved a wretch like me. Well, he was saved because he was a reprobate sailor, and he nearly lost his life in a North Atlantic storm, and he was saved at the last minute. The person he was with was swept overboard, and it sort of changed his life in a way. And later on, he became a vicar. Well, what's this got to do with the work I'm going to show you now? Well, quite a lot really, because in 2010 we went to Washington DC and then on to Virginia for the 60th birthday party of an old friend, and they lived in a 18th century house in Virginia, about 2 miles from Washington. And we'd flown across the Atlantic, and we thought after driving over to their place and so on that we'd have a little stretch our legs in the twilight in their garden, an extensive garden, beautiful old house. And I came across these stones, and about the size of a fist, laid out in various places like this. And I said to Sam and Elizabeth, who lived there, I said, "What are those?" He said, "Oh, they're grave markers. They're grave markers for the house slaves who lived here in the 18th and 19th century, and they haven't been touched." And I only got my iPhone with me, and I photographed them, and here they are. There's some close-ups. You can probably see those little stones. They once had the names written on them of the various slaves. Like Martha you might have written on one. They all took English names, of course. Didn't bother with the surname, because the surname was the name of the slave master. Martha and Robert, Samuel. And here's the whole piece, which you just call slave graves. It was quite a shock to see this all laid out and undisturbed after 150 years in a house which was a plantation house in Virginia. Though many dangerous toils and snares we have already come, 'twas grace that brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead us home. Well, the idea of Christianity being brought to the slave population who had been forcibly transplanted across the Atlantic was common, and one of the reasons was that, well, they thought that Christianity would save souls, but also Christianity, of course, promised a better life after death. And so however miserable your life was in the present, things could only get better after you died, so at least there was something to look forward to. But as for John Newton, who had become a vicar and whose words would be sung by slaves who had been transported across the Atlantic and people today, the strange thing about him was that his previous job, when he was on a ship, he was a captain, and he was a captain for many years of a slave ship.